Yeah, this is where the differences comes from our college educations. I think Sean and
Yeah.
Sean and I think because of our similar roots of on our established universities, it comes a little more naturally for us.
Yeah, eat the rich.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
eat the rich
Ooh,
and
you
eat the poor.
see, I don't know. That's a common debate, right? Like, oh, which school is inherently better, UC or CSUs? When I don't know. I feel like it really doesn't matter. I mean, at least for my life
Yeah.
path, or at least what I think of. For some people, yes, it does matter. Like if you're going to the masters or you're thinking of going to grad school or any further education. But for those of us who are just kind of just getting the piece of paper and moving on, I don't think you need anything special. So CSU, even a community college, is fine. Transferring after 2 years of community to a state school.
If we're going down this line, then I can give my brief spiel about what I learned from my
Education major, you have the
course
floor.
classes. Education minor, they don't offer that at my
Oh,
university.
my apologies.
Yeah, unfortunately, they only have a minor for some reason. But yeah, it's like when it comes to it, like sure, there's always that weird inherent like status, that hierarchy of just like one has to be better than the other because even like unknowingly we like put rankings or like opinions and thoughts into things that don't really necessarily have any substantial weight behind them, but then like we still like look at reviews or like the universities themselves like proudly display or like ranked number 6 best public university in the USA according to any bestschools.com or something like that.
Sure, it's similar to like school rivalries. There's no basis to it. It's just they're there.
Well,
for some
there's
reason.
basis to that because of like sports history in the past.
I guess, but it's still a very, very minor thing.
But then like something that comes especially prominently for us, especially when we're in high school, if you guys can go back to 4 or 5 years, is how like UCs and CSUs were always easily compared to just because of how that's how we were sort of raised. And just because it's like, oh, UCs only accept the top 10% of the students in California, or CSUs only accept the top 30%, et cetera, et cetera. Like because of those like statistical, quantitative statistics added onto them, like that's how we sort of come to judge knowingly and unknowingly, just like, oh yeah, the UCs are better just because they take the top 10%, whereas CSUs are more open and like accepting 30%, and because of that, blah blah, they're less selective, etc., etc.
Sure.
But like, and for whoever's listening to, if you guys are in the process of picking a college in high school, or having those worries and those contemplations, and it really is just like up to what you're seeking in your education. Like of course, even like unfortunately employers still look at like where you came from, like what your piece of paper of a diploma has as its name of its school. But for you and like for you personally, with like what you experience, both just like as you come of age, as you grow up, and also like what you learn that's going to be put in your brain, it really does just come down to like what you're seeking, at least when it comes to UCs and CSUs, where UCs are a little more research focused. So if you are thinking about like for example in the STEM field, looking into trying to go into labs, like teaching or like going into labs and then like working at like a biotech firm or something like that, then like you have more research opportunities to follow under professors and then be a lab assistant underneath them in one of their labs and stuff like that, whereas CSUs were designed more to actually just teach, like the professors and lecturers to actually teach their students. Not saying that the UCs don't teach their students at all. It's just there's also the professors at UCs are more inclined to focus on, not all of them, because some of them are amazing lecturers, but they're inclined to focus on their research and their studies and their projects too, while being forced to teach while at the same time as doing their research, because that's what they're contracted to do under the UC employment. And so because of that, there's like no inherent like black or white positives or negatives when it comes to choosing a CSU or UC. It's really just what you're looking for and what you learn in your 4 to 5 years in the CSU or UC, or even 2 or 3 if you transfer from a community college, and what you're going to do with that taking forward. Because some people might just learn at a CSU and then go to grad school to go to labs and like study labs and like do your own experimentations at a UC. And you know it's just how you want to follow through with the path that you sort of set out for yourself in life, even though it's sort of hard to come by that these days. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like in like the broad like time span of things, like you're not really gonna care like where you graduate, like where you went to like college or anything. No employer really like cares. They care more about your skill sets and your past experiences. But in the short like term like time span, it's I would say in this current job market, if you're trying to like me being in the STEM field, if you're trying to go for like a big like name company or a high tech or like a tech company, right? They do kind of look at the prestige of the school compared to your skill sets
Your
more.
merits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is again also based on like your own choices. Say you can't go to a UC, it's expensive to go to a
It is.
UC nowadays. Doesn't mean you won't end up at a tech company if you really want to work at a tech company or whatever, like a research company. You just need to do a little bit more work to like get there instead of UC then the company. But that's just my take, or that's just from my experience of how things have gone.
As a CSU
That's
student.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's pretty much matched my experience as well. With it doing everything, like it definitely I think helps get my foot in the door for like all the jobs that I've had in like my field. Just like the name of my school and its like reputation. And so I think it's like down the line, it doesn't matter what school I went to. Like I have coworkers, and I have had coworkers who went to like random schools that none of us probably ever heard of, but in, like the short term, like immediate like job looking like straight out of college, it definitely does help somewhat in my experience.
Yeah. And
I
so
want to bring up the possible path of studying abroad.
yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of us that went to high school near Silicon Valley, just going to high school in California in general, there's a huge pressure to get into a UC and to study a STEM field. And so a lot of people never consider that they could get the same value of education in another country or even another state. Now I know that out of state fees are very expensive in the US, but for example, if you wanted to get a degree in Germany, you could apply as a foreign student, and even for foreign students, you can get a degree for half as much as you would have to pay at a UC. And a lot of students, I think it can be really daunting, really scary to live in a country where people don't necessarily speak English as their main language, but as long as you're taking your classes in English and you have peers that speak English, you'll survive and you'll adapt, and you have the added benefit of having the opportunity to look for jobs in the country that you studied abroad in, because most likely you'll master the language to a certain extent, and you can see if you can personally fit into the culture, the working culture of that company uh, abroad. Or you could always decide to come back to the U.S. for work. But I
Right.
think that studying abroad is an avenue that many high school students never look to, and it really should be, especially in this age of expensive American education. It really should be more popular, I
Sure.
think.
And I agree with you, and I'm glad that you brought up that there are still classes in English. You still learn in English, and there are still people there that speak English. A lot of the concern and uncertainty comes from how much how much immersion will I just be thrown into. At least for me, especially when I was considering going to school in Japan, it was like, oh well, how much will I actually be um, able to use? Will I be able to adapt quick enough, or are all the classes in Japanese? Oh my god, what am I gonna do? I don't know how to do a class in Japanese. Um, so that was a bit of a turnoff, I would say, or at least a mental wall of like, oh, this isn't really a path. I guess just with all, it's just too much to worry about. It's not worth um, even pondering. It's a serious decision.
And it's hard to make these decisions because the future is so uncertain and there's no security,
Yeah,
right?
as a high schooler, you're not gonna know. Like I don't know. I feel like that's just something that sucks. Is that high schoolers have to make such seemingly
Important life
final,
changing
yeah, right?
decisions.
And everybody makes a big deal about it, like, oh, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And you don't know how to answer that when you're 17,
When you're only in the
18.
first, 20% of your life.
Yeah, right. It's just way too much to ask. Let them live. Let them stay up till 2, play games with their friends, or just dick around and be a kid, you know?
I mean, I would say if you don't know like what you want to do or have any sort of like clue of like what general like area you want to like be in, this is like when you want to go to like community college to give yourself more time to figure it out. And
Mhm, mhm.
I think community college is like, at least where we went to school,
Mhm.
like the people I hung out with, what other than you guys, it seemed like kind of below. Like, why would you go community college?
It's a viable option. I
But
hate that
then,
stipulation that it's such a step down when it's just college in a different
hmm
form.
but then like
Right.
when I got to like CSUs, right?
Mhm.
And you see like the monetary like differences, you're like,
Mhm.
wait, you're saving so much money to go to
Right.
like
Classes at community college are only a couple hundreds, whereas a class in a CSU even is almost a grand or so per class. It feels like
Yep.
it's probably more like 500 per class. But when you get to things like UCs, I can't even imagine.
It hurts.
Yeah, I okay, that much I can imagine, but I don't
and
want to, I guess is a better way of saying
and
it.
one more thing based on like my experience, because I did
Mhm.
take a couple like summer community college classes, is from like my professor. No, not gonna like slam too hard on like my school's professors.
Nah, dude,
'Cause-
suplex them. Take them to the
okay.
Undertaker.
Yeah, German
Uh,
suplex.
well, I thought the like community college professors seemed to like they definitely put in more effort, because I've had like people like professors in like
Oh,
CSUs where you could obviously tell like they don't care like about too much about their students. Of course, there are a good handful of them that do care, and I've had those professors as well as CSUs, and those classes were pretty great. Uh, hmm.
I feel like that might just be unfortunate because I can't say that I've really had very many true negative experiences with the professors themselves. maybe the way the class was run, sure, or maybe it was the class environment, whether it was because of the students or because of the teachers' format or whatever. But I can't say that I've run into many professors that genuinely don't care about the students. In fact, I'd say the opposite. A lot of my professors have been very openly like, yeah, if you guys need help with anything, if you need to contact me about anything, whether it's deadlines or how assignments are, or if anything else, right? They're very open, very I guess accessible.
Okay, well maybe it's just my like couple experiences because
Again, it might also just be on my end as well, a fairly unique
Everyone's experiences are relative.
thing.
I
Because
mean
there
when
are
you
so many
find out,
professors at a school. There are thousands of professors. So of course you're going to have bad apples and good apples and
I think
people in
when you like
between.
find out like when your professor he literally tells you like I don't look at like your like reviews for the end of the semester or
Mhm.
quarter like professor reviews. You're like I've been struggling in this class and he the reason he gave us was like you guys can be mean sometimes, like I don't want to be like down for a couple weeks. At that time I was like, wait, I've been struggling in this class, like getting all this work done, and you can't take like a
Feedback because it will hurt your
critiques.
feelings. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I don't expect them to go through all their reports, but
Sure.
they should read some at like every like semester, see like what has happened.
I mean, that's the harsh reality, right? Is that professors are human too, and as such, they are prone to very little forms of I don't know, not corruption, but they're imperfect. They care. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they're just willing to put in more, and sometimes they say, "Yeah, screw you guys. I don't care if you write mean things because I'm not gonna read them." Ha! Take that. All right. It just goes to show you that they're not so much different than you and I. And we might feel like it just because they have the title of professor, but the longer I've been doing this, and as I've been witnessing the teaching world through music, at least, and the more I see it, the more I realize that it's just kind of nobody knows what they're doing 100%. It's a lot of fake it till you make it, and I can probably imagine that in college that's less the case, but to some extent, or in some cases, I'm sure that's still very true, in some ways at least.
What about the UC and like abroad, like people? How have your overall professors have been, I guess?
I think I've been very lucky, and I don't think I've really had a bad professor throughout my entire college career. Like there were some classes that I were hard, but I never felt like the professors didn't care. Actually, I have had some professors who were kind of bad at teaching, but they were like really sweet people, and you could tell they were trying really hard. They just were kind of bad at teaching, which is like sad. It's like they just like didn't have that skill, and they were like very hard to like follow. They kind of rambled, and like, but you could tell they were trying. You could tell they cared still. But I know people who have had other experiences. I know that we had it's either like a visiting lecturer, like an associate professor, who got like fired based on like just people's feedbacks. Being so bad. And then like he like sent them like an email saying, "Hey, I hope you guys are happy. I got fired. You should email and like rescind your testimony or whatever." Which is like a completely inappropriate thing for them to do. Like,
Absolutely,
say, "Hey,
very unprofessional.
I can't believe you guys would do this to me." Like, "Oh wow, go change it so they'll give me your job back." It's like, well, I can see why this guy got fired. If he thinks he can send that sort of email.
I won't do that. If you send me that email, I'm just gonna keep my testimony, if not add more to it.
Yeah, but for the most part, my experience has been very positive. I think all the professors I've had have been very good and like dedicated to like actually teaching and making sure that we got a good education.
sometimes they may not be the best at teaching it, but at the very
Yeah.
least, they know what they're talking about. They just might not know how to get it across very well sometimes.
Yeah, but it always seemed like they cared to me, and like they're always willing to take the time, and
Mm-hmm.
go if you go to their office hours. Most people are kind of, I think, intimidated by professors. So the TA's office hours would always be packed, and the professor's office hours would be like empty. And so you could go there, and they seemed willing to talk.
Yeah, that weird teacher-student dynamic that's instilled in us from a very early age never really goes away. It's interesting.
It's how we're indoctrinated through the pedagogical, learnings that we've either like directly, sort of passively just digested from
Mhm.
K through 12 and continuing onwards into our college days.
Right.
And
But yeah,
for
I
me,
am very, very curious about Quill's experience with that too, though. The college kind of process in study abroad in Japan.
So
Because I know all the classes are in English, and it's the same kind of, I guess, type of education. But what kind of professors do you have? Do you have Japanese professors that speak English, or do you have English speaking professors that are just in Japan?
so at my college we had a good mix. There are of course Japanese language teachers who are
Uh-huh.
Japanese. There are foreign professors from various different countries that
Sure.
teach a variety of subjects, everything from social science to English.
Hmm.
And then there are a few Japanese nationals who are professors that teach subjects in English.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, about the professors in general, I'd have to agree with Sean. It's people that get into teaching tend to find that they get something out of it. And so whether they're a good teacher or not, they
Right.
they tend to
Right.
enjoy themselves. So I will admit that some professors there were much better researchers than teachers,
Hmm.
and you could really see it in their lectures. They'll be really intellectual, and they'll go on, and the students will just stare at the whiteboard, eyes glazed
Sure.
over. But for the professors that have teaching ability, it was amazing for me because I had such small classes, usually no more than 10 to 15 students. So you meet with a professor twice a week, and they know everyone by name, you know them by name,
Wow.
and I usually drop by professors' offices usually maybe once a week or so, because it was such a small campus. It was really easy to go in and say hello to a professor, usually on a first name basis with.
That's probably more than a student will go in their entire college career.
Yeah, it's a very different system. I like how small the school was.
It's
It can be a
cozy.
benefit and
It feels communal.
also a special type of hell, but
You get to know everybody real well, huh?
Well, it
yeah, the
seems like I got the short end of the stick here.
oh no,
Maybe.
Kyle.
Well, that's an interesting thing, I guess, to think about, is that you can be very good at something, but that doesn't inherently mean that you'll be good at passing that knowledge on.
It's
That's the
true. And
reality of it.
I wanted to add one other point is sometimes you'll take a class and you won't understand any of the philosophy behind the class
Hmm.
until much later. Uh, and I was very arrogant, and I had a class about careers, career
Uh-huh.
ch- career choice, especially about shukatsu, getting a job in Japan.
Right.
And there was seemingly childish exercises in that class, and you don't realize how fundamental they are until much later, like trying to draw your life out in the shape of a clock. Like, this is the start of my life at 0, the end of my
Hmm.
life at 12, right? Like, what do I want to do in this time? And that I felt like a child, drawing that.
Right, right.
But
You color
you
in
don't re
the little arrows and hands and
yeah, it's just like, yeah, 6 p.m., time to get married.
uh, they give you a little 36 pack of crayons.
uh, you don't realize those teachings are very profound because maybe you've never thought of your whole life and
Mhm.
what you want to accomplish, in 50 or 60 years. And
Sure.
so I I used to think professors were not good professors because they teach us in a way that made me feel like a child, but
Mhm.
in hindsight, they were much better teachers than I could have ever imagined.
Sometimes that's the best way to go because it's a good way of simplifying the idea in a very digestible and direct way. And that's a kids don't get a lot of credit. They are smarter than a lot of us think. They can put ideas together better than many of us believe they can, especially thematically. Like if they watch a movie, they might subconsciously pick up on themes that we might not think they do, but they do. Um, and so those kinds of techniques that you use on kids, sometimes they work as well as they would on kids as they do for us. Right? Like a little activity, doodling a clock. Oh yeah, get married at 6, have 2 kids by 6:03. Um, you know, mapping that out. It's a very I don't know. I don't know what it is. It might be the visual, physical planning of your life and doing that activity and having a tangible plan or whatever. Being able to make something yourself, I think, helps engrave some sort of message into your head a little better.
See, the thing that ran in my mind when like Quill was like not to like put any or like to like put down like anything Quill have said, but I thought of something like if the teacher was like, no, they're just like stupid like kids activities
Mhm.
instead of these profound like activities like Quill was saying. But I'm sure like the teachers are like think about that, but
Sure.
my mind went the other way. Just
Well, especially if it's a class that's made to kind of teach you about teaching, like a lot of my music education classes that I took earlier, um, where I'm doing this because, or this method works in this way, or this is how you get kids to react that way. Um, so I guess if you're trying to teach from that perspective and teach how to teach as well um, as teaching. Sorry, that's a lot of teaches to navigate through. But if you're approaching it from that perspective, I think it's very okay to do a more fundamental um, exercise, or an art or craft, or just a very basic activity, just as an example to learn from, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
and
late. I was kind of just going off for a little bit there. Blanked out. What happened?
let me plug study abroad again.
Oh yes, please do.
Because I studied abroad for a year um, in the Philippines, and for anyone in college right now, or even in high school, even if you don't study abroad for your actual college, if you're going to college in the US, please take advantage of a year or even a semester abroad, and it will change your life.
And most of
And
the time, it won't cost more than a normal semester if you can get like scholarships or other extra funds.
it's very true. And the US government offers a variety of scholarships for certain countries if you want to study abroad in I think in Korea, for example, you can
Mhm.
get a special language scholarship for that. But anyway,
Do it.
yeah, enjoy your experience and don't worry. Everyone expects the exchange students to party a lot, so
And why not? I mean, that's kind of that's fine if that's the reason you want to go. Heck yeah, live while you can.
yeah, learn a lot, party hard, and
Just be responsible.
yes, be responsible. Drink responsibly.
Right. Know your limits before going abroad, so you're not that one dumbass who's blacking out every night and causing trouble for everyone else.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Keep up your grades
Yeah,
as well.
what are you nudging, winking at yourself, Quill? Are you poorly
Yeah,
representing the
myself.
states? Are you a menace in Japan? Are you just wanted?
I was a menace.
Oh,
I was.
yeah. All the local izakayas hated you, huh? You come in with your posse of Hakujin folk and just wreck the
Gaijin.
place. Ugh, gross. Ew.
Foreigners did have a bad reputation near my college campus for a while in the
Really?
bars. Yeah.
Even though it's a college campus, maybe they just really got some bad international students.
Yeah, I think a few students' behavior in we call it nomi hodai, an all you can drink bar.
Mm. Oh yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, especially for students that grew up in Europe, for example, and have been drinking since they were
Like
16.
10. Yeah, right.
2 hours all you can drink. That's dangerous stuff. And
Yep.
yeah, we got into trouble a few times, but relations have gotten better.
Yeah, I can only hope so.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody tarnishing the Gaijin name any further. I think it's already pretty well tarnished. It's already dead. Just leave it there, please.
Yeah. But yeah, that those days are over, so
Right.
you can be more
Now you
chill
can
now.
experience that for yourself, listener. You can go be your own little Dennis the Menace in your own country of your choosing. Go onto the earth and party on.
Not right now.
Yes, right. Well, that's true. It's probably poor advice for current standards, but for the future, listener, that's past this historic pandemic.
You're only
Live
young
a
for a
little.
shorter amount of time, and you're only gonna have this kind of freedom at the same time while you are young and able for
Yes.
an even shorter amount of time.
This is one of those cases where there is a too late. Sometimes in some cases, yeah, it's never too late, like to start college. And well, in this case, yeah, your knees will give out, your back will start giving out on you, your body just won't work like it used to. So you got to live while you can.
Speaking from experience, Josh.
Yeah, somehow I got shingles.
Yeah.
So
You could visit any country if you have the money and the time to, but you can't experience studying abroad as a
but
college student.
you can experience shingles in any country, as I have come to notice.
Oh, I didn't know we were going there,
That's
but
not region blocked, just so you know. Or region locked, I guess you could say. Haha, haha. Like a game console.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sneak peek to the next episode where we talk about the new releases in gaming technology, Xbox Series
PS5.
X and PS5. Correct.
Not guaranteed because we might forget about this conversation, and so we might be on an entirely new topic.
Nvidia 3000 cards.
Oh
Sim
yeah.
3 is coming out pretty soon.
I think we'll
What?
have plenty to fill in the next episode with. Sounds like a plan, fellas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as
And
for tonight's ramblings, I believe we should put a pin in it.
yeah, I've had
Yeah.
enough about Josh going on a spiel about contracting numerous
Shingles.
experiences
Oh.
and trauma and diseases.
Well,
That
do
could
we
be for
want to
another
like
podcast.
give, like we did in last episode? I know Sean wasn't here, but do we want to give like recommendations for things to listen to or things to watch for people who are stuck at home and during this pandemic?
Yeah, if you have them, and I do have one movie recommendation. Recently, I watched a movie by Weird Al Yankovic. I don't think I shouted this one out last week. Last week was Swiss Army Man, I believe. So yeah, this week UHF by Weird Al Yankovic is a very fun, very charming, um, sort of variety show style movie about a boy who inherits a TV station and the story of keeping it alive. And it's just panned with a lot of really, really smart and witty ideas and clips, kind of parodying the TV culture of the 80s. And the jokes still hold up. None of them are very dated, at least not a lot of them are. So all the jokes land. It adverts your expectations quite exquisitely, and it's all around fun time. So if you got an hour and a half, and I don't know if you want to rent it or whatever, UHF by Weird Al. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I took to Josh's suggestion and I actually watched Swiss Army Man, I think 2 days
Oh,
ago.
how nice.
It is actually a very nice, I guess, like indie feeling film.
Yeah, it's kind of cute, isn't it?
Yes, which I particularly enjoy, and the soundtrack too. It's not the first of its kind, but it does utilize the movie itself into the soundtrack very well, which I really enjoyed.
It's very raw. It holds its emotions on its sleeve. It's very open and genuine and
Yes,
pure.
it's very organic, and from that organic indie vibe and Daniel Radcliffe in hard not
And it's
to
just funny and surreal.
yes, it's hard not to think about Daniel Radcliffe not as Harry Potter, but instead a corpse that farts a lot. But
Right. Well, I would commend him, especially him and Robert Pattinson recently. They are really trying to do new things, and I think they have been successfully tearing away from their previously typecasted characters.
Mhm.
Harry Potter and Twilight, Vampire Man. I don't think of Daniel Radcliffe anymore as just Harry Potter. I think of him as a bunch of other things because he's been in like so many different interesting ideas in movies and series, like an Amazon exclusive series. Uh, but he's really doing it. He's
Josh, we're trying to wrap
successful.
up.
Sorry.
Yes, and in Swiss Army
Fix it
Man,
in
we also
post.
get to see Daniel
Cut me in half.
Radcliffe's bare naked butt. It's pretty hairy. And my movie recommendation for this week is a Korean movie. It's another zombie movie, riding at a zombie hype train caused by Train to Busan. But this one, it's on Netflix. It's called Alive, starring Yuain, who you might know if you watched a lot of K dramas in the mid 2010s. And it's about just a guy probably like around our age just trying to survive a zombie apocalypse that befell upon Korea, and just how he sort of survives day to day. Yeah, and that's my movie recommendation.
Anyone else have recommendations?
I've got one.
Okay, cool. Quill, go.
So you can search this on Netflix, I believe. It's a film by Christopher Nolan called Memento.
Ooh.
One of his earlier films. It's about a man who cannot make new memories. And it's the story of how he's reacting to the. No, don't want to spoil it. But yeah, very, very interesting film. Kind of a distorted timeline, but once it all comes together, you want to watch it again just to get all the pieces in the right place. So, Memento, Christopher Nolan,
And would you say it's a movie that's better on the second watch then?
most definitely.
Okay,
It's got
okay.
high rewatchability.
I'll take that
Yes.
into mind.
That's good. More bang for your buck.
Sean, you got anything?
Nothing off the top of my head. I didn't realize we were gonna be doing this. Next time
sure.
I will.
Dang it, you didn't read the script. We sent out an email last week. Come on.
I'm gonna be fired.
You're off the cast. Get off the
Bruh.
couch.
It's his debut.
I know, his
It's
first
okay.
episode.
He didn't
and
know.
his
He didn't know.
last.
So, Kyle, you got anything? Last but not least.
Yeah, I told you guys, but everyone should listen to Yoasobi. Their most popular song right now is Yoru ni Kakeru. So Yoasobi is a group made up of one music producer and the actual singer, Lilith Ikuta. And the music producer his name is, or he goes by Ayase, and he produces like Vocaloid music, it seems like. But I've listened to all the songs they put out, and they're all very good. And she has like I guess it's called like home take, where she does like a home recording of her singing, and it's pretty spot on to like how the actual like music or the music video sounds. So very impressed. And that is all of our recommendations for this week. Let us know if you, anyone in the comments, I guess, if you guys have anything you want us to like listen to or like watch, because we're pretty bored as well on our end, so we don't mind like looking at.
We don't mind adding a little movie review segment, or maybe a spin-off podcast or show or whatever. Let's see.
But yeah, we'll catch everyone hopefully next week. Probably next week. Yeah, next week.
Yep. Catch you guys next time. Catch you guys on the flip side.
Bye bye.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
He never leaves.
Craig never.
Craig
Never leaves.
Craig stay.
Craig is eternal.